Did you know over 25% of US employees quit or are let go within their first 90 days? But my sister didn't even make it one full day. She landed what she called her dream job, and my parents kicked me out just to make room for her new career life. The twist? She got fired before her first lunch break. In me, I had already packed my bags. It all started with an email. Amanda had been checking her inbox every 5 minutes for the past week, obsessively refreshing her phone like it was a slot machine. Then, one evening, I heard the scream from the other room, high-pitched, theatrical, pure Amanda. "I got the job," she yelled, bursting into the kitchen where I was finishing dishes. Mom dropped the pasta spoon. Dad stood up so fast he knocked over his iced tea. Everyone hugged. Everyone cheered. Except me. I offered a quiet congrats and went back to rinsing plates. That night, the house turned into a party. Balloons, champagne, a cake that read "Boss Babe," even matching t-shirts that said, "She believed she could, so she did." It felt excessive, but I kept my mouth shut. Because that's what I always did. I was the reliable one, the backup. Amanda was the spotlight. She had the new job, the followers, the glow. I had chores. And the back room near the garage. Still, I didn't expect what came next. After the guests left and the music finally died down, I was in my room folding laundry when Mom knocked gently on the door. She stepped in with that fake casual tone she always used when delivering bad news. "Sweetie, we've been talking," she said. "Amanda's new job is downtown, and your room's closer to the front door and has better light. It just makes more sense for her to move in here." I blinked. "So, you want me to move?" I asked. "Just temporarily," she said quickly, smiling too much. "You can stay with Grandma. It'll be good for both of you." I looked around at my shelves, my desk, my tiny sense of privacy. Gone. Just like that. No conversation. No concern for how I'd feel. My sister gets a job, and I get evicted. Dad didn't even bother to come in. He shouted from the hallway, "It's just until Amanda gets settled, don't make it a big deal." Amanda popped her head in like she was doing me a favor. "Thanks for being cool about this," she said with a grin. "You're the best." I didn't respond. My suitcase was already under the bed. I started pulling it out. I moved out the next morning. Amanda was in full corporate Barbie mode black blazer, nude heels, custom tote bag with her initials in gold. Mom was making her a packed lunch like it was her first day of kindergarten. Dad handed her a key fob like she was inheriting the family business. "I'm gonna kill it," Amanda said, snapping selfies by the front door. No one helped me carry my things to the car. Grandma's house smelled like dust and mothballs. Her guest room had floral wallpaper and a creaky bed, but at least it was quiet. I spent the morning trying not to feel angry. After all, Amanda was starting her career. Maybe she really needed the space. Maybe this was just temporary. I even texted her good luck at 8:30. She didn't reply. At 12:42, she did. It said, "Call you later." Something happened. By 1:15, she was at Grandma's door, sobbing with mascara streaked down her cheeks. I opened it and stared. She didn't even let me speak. She just collapsed on the couch and whispered, "I got fired." One day. Not even. And just like that, the girl they kicked me out for was jobless. And I was homeless. Amanda didn't look like the girl from yesterday. Her bun was crooked, eyeliner smudged, and that designer tote she proudly held at the front door was now crumpled beside her on Grandma's couch. I sat across from her, arms folded, waiting for her to speak. She sniffled hard and took a deep breath like she was prepping for a performance. "It wasn't my fault," she started. "I don't even know what happened. One minute I was in orientation, and the next, I'm being walked out like a criminal." I didn't say anything. I just nodded, she went on, voice cracking. "Apparently, there was an issue with my background check, something about my online presence. They said they're evaluated the hire after internal concerns." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean your TikToks where you called corporate jobs soul-stealing cubicles and bragged about faking sick days?" Her jaw dropped. "That was for clout. They know that." I sighed. Amanda had always blurred the line between real life and performance. Her idea of professional was a filtered photo captioned, "Boss Energy." I wanted to feel bad for her, but all I could think, washout, did they not see this coming? And how had I been the one punished for it? Grandma shuffled in during the awkward silence and handed us both tea in delicate china cups like we were still kids playing grown-up. Amanda looked like she might cry again, but Grandma gave her that look, you know the one. The quiet, old-school, get-it-together glare. Amanda sniffled and took a sip. "So, what happens now?" I asked, finally breaking the tension. She shrugged. "I don't know. Mom and Dad are gonna freak." I tilted my head. They didn't seem too worried about me when they kicked me out yesterday. Amanda bit her lip. "Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I didn't think they'd actually make you leave. I thought you'd push back or say no." I stared at her. "You thought I'd fight harder for a room than you would for your job?" She looked away. The silence filled with everything we never said growing up. She had always been the favorite, the golden child, the one they believed in, invested in, prioritized. And me? I was the sidekick, the helper, the one who'd fold and smile and be the bigger person. But sitting in that dusty room, I realized something had changed, not in them and me. Later that night, Amanda called Mom from the guest room. I could hear every word through the thin walls. "I don't want to talk about it. No, it's not Lucy's fault. No, she didn't say anything. It was a misunderstanding, okay? I'll come home tomorrow." Then came the long pause. Then her voice dropped. "Well, I can't stay at Grandma's forever. It's not exactly ideal." I rolled my eyes. Classic Amanda. She was always looking for the next soft place to land, never quite dealing with the fallout. I, on the other hand, had been cleaning up her messes since we were kids. She broke Mom's favorite vase, took the blame. She flunked a math test I got grounded for, not helping her enough. And now, she lost her dream job. And somehow, I was still the one sleeping in Grandma's house. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, not screaming mad, but that low, simmering burn. The kind that makes you plan, not explode. Amanda thought this was just another bump in her glamorous road. But for me, it was a wake-up call. I was done playing the backup character in her show. The next morning, I made breakfast before she got up because Grandma needed to eat. And let's be honest, Amanda wasn't going to help. While scrambling eggs, I checked my email and saw a reply to an application I'd forgotten I sent 2 weeks ago. It was from a mid-sized marketing firm I'd admired for years. "We'd love to invite you for an interview next week." My heart skipped. I'd applied on a whim, knowing I didn't have a flashy resume or fancy internship stories, but apparently, someone saw potential. I didn't tell Amanda. Not yet. She stumbled into the kitchen like she hadn't slept. "Did Mom call?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nope," she sighed dramatically and sat down. "I need to figure something out. Maybe go live about what happened and spin it into something positive. People love comeback stories." I nearly dropped my fork. "You're thinking about filming this?" She shrugged. "Why not? I've seen girls go viral for less." I stared at her, then down at my phone, then back at her again. I smiled, but it wasn't a kind one. "Go ahead," I thought. "Post your comeback story. Just don't be surprised when mine steals the spotlight." I didn't tell Amanda about the interview, not because I wanted to be sneaky, but because I knew how she'd react. Amanda didn't like when I had good news, especially if it didn't involve her. Growing up, I learned to keep my little wins quiet. When I got straight A's, it was, well, Amanda's taking more advanced classes. When I made varsity track, it was, Amanda's focusing on academics. There was always a reason why her spotlight had to stay on. But now, for the first time, the email in my inbox wasn't about her. It was about me. I opened a new tab and started reviewing the company. Mid-sized, woman-led, collaborative culture. Their site even listed their team bios, and every profile looked like someone I could actually talk to, not fake girl bosses, but women who'd worked their way up. I took notes, updated my resume, and set an alarm for my video interview. As I finished, Amanda walked in, wearing my old hoodie like it was hers. "What are you doing?" she asked casually, flopping on the couch. "Just emailing a friend," I said, clicking out of the screen. She nodded, uninterested. Good. Because this time, I wasn't going to let her hijack the moment. Later that day, she made a TikTok. Of course she did. I heard her rehearsing lines in the bathroom mirror before she filmed. She came out looking like a sob story wrapped in lip gloss, phone propped up with her makeup bag. "Hey guys," she began, teary-eyed. "Today didn't go how I planned." I rolled my eyes. She was already turning her crash into content. I watched from the hallway as she poured out a version of the truth where she was the victim, the misunderstood millennial queen whose authenticity was too real for corporate America. The likes started rolling in. Then the comments. Strangers telling her she was brave, strong, resilient. She grinned at her phone like it was a mirror. "I'm thinking about launching a career advice series," she told me later, like she hadn't just been fired 36 hours ago. "Maybe turn this into a brand." I nodded. "Sure, you do that." Inside, I was boiling. She didn't learn anything. No humility, no responsibility, just repackaged failure as trendy heartbreak. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding from a sleeping bag at Grandma's house. Amanda's fall wasn't humbling her. It was just another chance to go viral. But me? I was finally heading somewhere real. The next morning, Grandma surprised me with breakfast my favorite: eggs over easy, buttered toast, and just the right amount of pepper. "Got something big today?" she asked. I blinked. "How'd you know?" She smiled. "You always clean when you're nervous. You've been dusting corners no one's touched in 5 years." I laughed, then nodded. "Interview." She didn't make a big deal. Just poured coffee and said, "You got this." And somehow, that quiet vote of confidence hit harder than any of Mom and Dad's empty praise. I took the call in Grandma's sewing room, the only spot with decent lighting. My hands were shaking a little, but as soon as the interviewer smiled and said, "We've been looking forward to meeting you, Lucy," something in me steadied. For the next 30 minutes, I spoke like I'd been waiting for this moment my entire life, and in a way, I had. I told them about my freelance marketing work, my data skills, even how I'd managed projects while living at home. I didn't mention Amanda once. And when they asked why I was looking for a change, I said, "Because I'm ready to take up space I used to give away." After the call ended, I exhaled so hard I felt dizzy. I closed my laptop, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. I hadn't said anything fake. I didn't oversell myself. I was just honest. And it felt good. Amanda came in a few minutes later, still scrolling through her comments. "Someone from BuzzLink just followed me," she said excitedly. "They do social media stories on rising influencers. I might be on their radar." I nodded, sipping water. "Cool." She paused. "What have you been up to?" I smiled politely. "Oh, just trying something new." She looked at me longer than usual. For a second, I think she could sense it that something was shifting, that maybe this time I wasn't in her shadow, that maybe I had something going that didn't need her approval. But she didn't ask. She just went back to her phone. I didn't mind. Because for once, the world wasn't watching her, it was watching me. And if they called me back with an offer, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. Not to hurt Amanda, not to one-up her, but to finally live a life that wasn't built around someone else's spotlight. My time was coming. I could feel it. It came 2 days later in email, so short it nearly knocked the air out of me. "We'd love to offer you the position. Let's discuss start dates." That was it. No confetti, no celebration music, no dramatic pause. Just a simple sentence that confirmed everything I had quietly worked for was finally real. I stared at the screen, blinking through tears I hadn't expected. For years, I watched Amanda get praise for showing up late and talking loudly. Meanwhile, I did the behind-the-scenes work, the planning, the organizing, the actual doing. And now, I had something she couldn't take credit for. Something with my name on it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump on the bed. But instead, I closed my laptop gently, stood up, and walked straight into the kitchen where Grandma was peeling potatoes. "I got it," I said quietly. She didn't ask what. She just smiled, nodded once, and said, "Good. They're lucky to have you." And that's when I realized I didn't need a crowd. I didn't need applause. I just needed someone who saw me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly seen. Not as Amanda's sister, not as a placeholder, just me. I called Mom that evening, mostly out of habit. Maybe part of me still wanted her to say something encouraging. She picked up on the third ring, voice flat. "Hey, everything okay?" I cleared my throat. "I got a new job," I said. "Marketing associate at Reliance Group." Silence. Then, "Oh, that's nice. Are you still at Grandma's?" That's what she asked. Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "That's amazing." Just logistics. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, for now. But I'm looking at places closer to the office." She didn't respond. Then, "Well, maybe once Amanda gets back on her feet, we can figure things out with the room." I almost laughed. My room, the one they tossed me out of like a sleeping bag. "No need," I said. "She can keep it. I won't be moving back in." That stopped her. "Wait, you're not coming home?" I smiled. "No, I'm moving forward." I hung up before she could turn it into a guilt trip. I stared at my phone for a long time after, not because I was sad, but because that was the first time I'd ever said no to my parents without a knot in my stomach. It felt like cutting a chain. Amanda came into the room later, wearing one of Grandma's old robes like it was couture. "Mom said you got a job," she said, flopping on the couch without looking at me. "Guess you're the career girl now." I kept my voice neutral. "Yeah, I guess I am." She chewed her lip like she wanted to say more. I didn't mean for all this to get so messy. I really thought that job was going to change my life. I wanted them to see me as successful. That part caught me off guard. Amanda never admitted to wanting anything beyond clout and compliments. "They already saw you as successful," I said. "Even when you weren't, I had to prove it just to get noticed." She nodded slowly, and for once, she didn't argue. "Maybe I got used to being the favorite," she said, "and maybe I let that make me lazy." I looked at her, really looked. She was vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. For a second, I felt sorry for her, because for all the praise, all the spotlight, she'd never built anything for herself. Not really. And that was a pain even TikTok couldn't fix. The next week flew by. I signed onboarding papers, picked out outfits, and found a small studio apartment near the office. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Every cabinet, every light switch, every floorboard was under my name. On move-in day, Grandma gave me a hug that lasted a little longer than usual and pressed an envelope into my hand. "Just a little something to start fresh," she said. Inside was a check. Not huge, but enough to cover my first month's rent. "You believed in me," I told her. "That means more than anything." She smiled and said, "That's what family's supposed to do." And right there, I decided something I would never again fight for love that came with conditions. Amanda hugged me too, softer this time. "Maybe I'll figure it out like you did," she whispered. I didn't make promises. I just said, "I hope you do." Then I walked into my new place alone, set down my keys, and breathed in the silence. No drama, no comparisons, no battles for space. Just me, standing in a life I earned by being quiet, steady, and finally brave enough to claim it. My first day at Reliance felt like walking onto another planet. The building was sleek but not cold, all glass and natural wood, with live plants hanging from the ceiling and coffee that actually tasted like coffee. I walked in clutching my tote bag like a lifeline, expecting to be ignored or brushed aside like I was at home. But instead, the receptionist greeted me by name. My manager, a calm woman named Jada, introduced me to the team personally. "This is Lucy," she said. "She's going to help us overhaul the analytics system." That word, help, landed differently. It didn't sound like code for do the dirty work. It sounded like trust, like contribution. And for once, I wasn't introduced as someone's little sister or the fallback option. I was just Lucy. I found my desk near the window and opened my laptop, already eager to dive in. I didn't wear a bold blazer. I didn't bring a vision board or post a photo online. I just logged in and got to work. And you know what? That was enough. More than enough. Because while some people talk their way into rooms, I'd worked my way into this one. And I planned to stay. Jada gave me a rundown of the current systems, and within 10 minutes, I spotted 3 broken links in a data column that wasn't mapping correctly. Good catch, she said, leaning over my shoulder. We've had 2 people miss that already. I nodded, trying not to grin. I wasn't flashy. I didn't make loud suggestions or interrupt meetings to sound smart. I just paid attention, and apparently, that was rare. Over the next few hours, I kept my head down, offering small fixes, catching errors, and asking thoughtful questions. By lunchtime, Jada had already pulled me aside. You have a really sharp eye, she said. Quiet, but sharp. We need that here. I blinked. I wasn't used to praise without a disclaimer. No, but your sister is better at public speaking. No, you should smile more. Just a compliment. Direct. Genuine. I ate lunch in the break room with 2 coworkers who asked about my background. I told them about working freelance, helping with local business campaigns. I left out the part about getting kicked out of my room. I wasn't embarrassed, I just didn't want that to be the headline anymore. I wasn't the sad story. I was the success they never saw coming. By the end of the week, I'd redesigned a reporting tool that made the Monday meeting run 15 minutes faster. Jada mentioned it in front of the whole team. Shout out to Lucy for saving our Monday mornings, she said with a smile. I could feel my face heating up, but I didn't shrink. I said, happy to help, and meant it. It felt so different being in a space where I didn't have to beg to be valued. I just had to show up. Meanwhile, back at Grandma's, Amanda had posted a YouTube video titled, Why Getting Fired Was the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. She was still trying to turn the moment into a platform. I watched a few minutes out of curiosity, same dramatics, same lack of reflection. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I'd moved on. I was building something real. My apartment was still Sparcino, fancy rugs or curated art, but it was peaceful. I made my own meals, watered my plants, and woke up every morning with purpose. No one was telling me I had to make room for someone else. My life finally felt like mine. And that freedom? That was priceless. On Friday, I stayed late to finish up a report. Jada walked by and paused at my desk. You don't have to stay late on your first week, you know. I smiled. I just wanted to make sure this data was clean before Monday. She nodded. That's rare. Most people rush to finish just enough, but you're thorough, we notice that. Then she added something that stuck with me. You don't have to be loud to lead. That hit me like a wave. All my life, I thought leadership meant charisma, confidence, commanding a room. But here, in this space, it was different. Leadership looked like reliability, consistency, quiet strength. And maybe I'd had it in me all along, I just needed to be somewhere that saw it. When I finally packed up and walked out into the cool night air, I didn't feel drained. I felt powerful. Not the kind of power that needs a microphone. The kind that moves silently, steadily, undeniably. The kind that doesn't ask for a seat at the table because it builds one. And this table, it had my name on it now. The email came late Monday afternoon, subject line. Leadership Cohort Nomination, Internal Candidate Review. I thought it was a mistake, maybe something meant for someone else. But when I clicked it open, there was my name, bold and centered. Lucy Caldwell has been nominated by Jada N for the Reliance Women in Strategy Fellowship. Please prepare your short statement for consideration. I blinked at the screen, not quite sure how to react. Me? Nominated? For leadership? I had barely been here a month. I reread the message 3 times, then scrolled down to see the program description. It was a 6-month internal mentorship opportunity. Small group, direct training with executives, tailored growth plans. Only 5 people in the entire company would be selected. I sat back in my chair and let that sink in. I hadn't applied. I hadn't asked. I'd just shown up, worked hard, paid attention. And someone saw that. Someone believed in me enough to put my name forward. I remembered how Amanda used to say, "You'll never stand out unless you take up space." But I was starting to learn sometimes. Space is taken not with volume, but with value. And mine had finally been recognized. I waited until I got home to tell anyone. I FaceTimed Aunt Carol first. I hadn't told her much lately, she'd been checking in occasionally, but I wanted to show her something worth smiling about. When she picked up and saw my face, she said, "You got news, don't you?" I held up my phone to show her the email. I got nominated for a strategy fellowship, I said, trying to sound casual, but I couldn't hide the grin. She actually clapped. I knew it, she said. You keep showing them what we've always known. You've got more fire in you than anyone gives you credit for. After we hung up, I thought about calling Mom, but I didn't. I couldn't picture her excited for me. Not in the way I needed. Amanda was always the one who had potential. I was the one who had good timing, or got lucky. This didn't feel like luck. This felt like earned. Amanda, ironically, called that night. Her energy was off. Just checking in, she said, like we were besties. How's the new job? I kept it short. It's going well. She hesitated. I've been thinking of applying to something too, maybe getting back into the market. I said nothing. Let her sit with that. That weekend, I went back to my parents' house for the first time since the night they kicked me out. Not to stay, just to pick up a few books I'd left behind. When I walked through the door, the house looked exactly the same, but I didn't feel the same inside it. Amanda was out, and Mom was folding laundry at the table. She looked up, surprised to see me. Didn't expect you, she said. Thought you were settled at Grandma's. I nodded. I'm not at Grandma's anymore. I've got my own place now. Near work. She raised an eyebrow. You're still working there? I bit my tongue. Still? Yes. I've been nominated for a leadership fellowship, I said. They select 5 people from the entire company. It's a big deal. She looked at me blankly. Oh, that's nice. That was all. No hug, no smile, just laundry and silence. And somehow, that was the closure I didn't know I needed. I didn't need their applause anymore. I didn't need their validation. I walked out of that house with a box of books and no anger, just peace. Because now I knew my success didn't have to be visible to them for it to be real. The next week, I submitted my official statement for the fellowship. I didn't try to sound like anyone else. I didn't quote famous CEOs or mention big words I barely used. I just told the truth. I talked about growing up in a family where being quiet meant being invisible. I talked about how I learned to lead by listening, how I noticed what others missed, how I built my own voice from scratch. I ended it with a single sentence. I don't need a spotlight to lead. I just need a seat that lets me do the work. When I hit send, I felt something shift deep inside. Not pride, not ego. Just confirmation. That I belonged here. That everything I'd survived, the dismissal, the disrespect, the discredithad, led me to a place where none of that followed me anymore. Whether I got the fellowship or not, I had already stepped into a version of myself that my family never imagined I could be. And that was the most powerful part of all. They thought I was the sister who would stay small, but they were wrong. I wasn't in anyone's shadow anymore. I was building something bigger than that. The email came in just before noon on Wednesday. I had just returned from a team lunch, nothing fancy, just sandwiches and laughter and people who treated me like I belonged when I saw the subject line. Fellowship acceptance, welcome to the cohort. For a second, I just stared. Then I clicked it open and read the words 3 times, heart racing faster with each line. We're pleased to welcome you into the Reliance Strategy Fellowship. Your application stood out not only for your professionalism, but for your clarity of thought, empathy, and leadership potential. I sat back in my chair and let out a long, shaky breath. I didn't cry. I didn't jump. I just smiled. Because deep down, I already knew I belonged. This email just made it official. My name would be printed in the company bulletin. I'd get one-on-one mentorship with the executive team. And the best part? I didn't have to step on anyone to get here. I didn't fake a story. I didn't chase views. I showed up, did the work, and let it speak. And now, it was speaking louder than I ever had to. That night, I treated myself to takeout and ate on my tiny balcony. Just me, a container of pad thai, and the city buzzing below. It was quiet, peaceful, and fully mine. Around 9 p.m., I got a text from Amanda. Hey, Mom told me about the fellowship. That's huge. Congrats. I stared at it for a while. She never said, I'm proud of you. She didn't ask how I did it, just dropped a one-line text like we were friends again. I typed a quick thanks and left it at that. A few minutes later, another text came through. I've been thinking about reaching out to Jada. You think she'd talk to me? There it was, the real reason. Not connection, not closure. Just curiosity. I didn't answer right away. I scrolled through her recent socials. She had shifted her content again. Less crying, more rebuilding. She was talking about corporate resilience now, as if her one-day job had made her an expert. I sighed. Same Amanda. Always reinventing herself on someone else's momentum. I thought about ignoring her, but something stopped me. I replied, "You'll have to build that relationship yourself, like I did." No shade, no bitterness, just truth. The next day at work, something unexpected happened. Jada pulled me into a quick hallway chat. "I got a message on LinkedIn from your sister," she said. My stomach dropped. She mentioned your name but didn't give much context. Said she was exploring marketing again and wanted to collaborate. Jada paused. "I haven't replied." I nodded. "You don't owe her anything, and I didn't put her up to it." Jada smiled softly. "I figured. I just wanted to let you know. You're standing strong on your own now, Lucy. Don't let anyone ride your wave who didn't help you make it." That line stuck with me the whole day. She was right. For years, Amanda got the spotlight. I got the scraps. And now that I had built something of my own, she was circling again, looking for an entry point. But this time, I wasn't shrinking to make space. I wasn't handing over my seat. If Amanda wanted a second chance, she'd have to do what I did, start from zero and climb. And that climb? It's never as easy when there's no one softening your landing. Maybe now she'd understand what it really takes. That weekend, I went home again, not to visit, but to drop off a few things Grandma had lent me during my move. Mom opened the door, surprised again. She looked tired, older. "You look good," she said. "Happier." I nodded. "I am." Amanda came down the stairs in sweatpants, holding her phone like always. "Hey," she said, awkward smile. "Didn't know you were coming." I placed the bag on the counter. "Just dropping some stuff off." She shifted her weight, unsure what to say. "I saw your name on Reliance's Instagram. That's huge. They posted about the fellowship." I raised an eyebrow. "You follow them?" She shrugged. "Been doing research. Thinking about applying for something. Maybe trying again." I gave a small nod. "I hope you do it for the right reasons this time." That landed. Her smile faded. "I guess I'm realizing success isn't about being seen, it's about being ready." And I wasn't. I didn't say I agreed. I didn't comfort her. I just turned, walked to the door, and said, "Good luck, Amanda." And for the first time, I wasn't trying to be nice or big-hearted. I was just saying goodbye to the version of me that needed her to change. I had already moved on. Walking into the first fellowship session felt like stepping into the future I'd been building in secret. The conference room was tucked away on the top floor-to-ceiling windows casting soft light across polished floors and glass walls. 5 nameplates sat on the table. Mine was one of them. For a second, I hovered near the doorway, wondering if someone would stop me, ask if I was lost or waiting for someone else. But no one did. Jada waved me in and gestured toward my seat. "Welcome, Lucy," she said, smiling like she had been waiting for me to show up. The other women in the room looked nothing like Amanda's filtered feed. They weren't flashy, loud, or overly polished. They were focused, grounded. One had gray streaks in her hair and a notebook filled with product sketches. Another had a quiet but commanding energy, like she could flip a company strategy on its head with one comment. I sat down slowly, heart racing. These weren't influencers. They were builders, doers, problem solvers. And I was here with them not as an assistant, not as a tag-along, but as an equal. I took a breath and whispered to myself, "You belong here." Jada kicked off the session with a question. "What brought you to this tablonaut? Your job title, not your resume. You, the real you." The silence was thick at first. Then one by one, the women began to share. One spoke about rebuilding after divorce, another about being overlooked for years because of her quiet leadership style. And then it was my turn. I swallowed hard and said, "I was always told success belonged to someone louder, that I was helpful, not important, that I should support, not lead. But I'm here because I finally stopped believing that." Jada nodded slowly. "Powerful." And just like that, the room felt warmer. Like every piece of shame I'd carried around for being soft-spoken, for being second best, had just been replaced with something real, something earned. We spent the next 2 hours mapping out our development tracks, setting personal and professional goals. Mine, to lead a client strategy within the next 6 months, to hire my own intern, to own a result, not just contribute to one. As the session wrapped, Jada said something I'll never forget. We don't build leaders by making them louder. We build them by listening better. And suddenly, I felt 10 feet tall. Later that evening, I stood in front of the mirror in my studio apartment. Nothing fancy, just me, barefaced, hair tied back, wearing the same soft sweater I used to clean Grandma's floors in. But I looked different. Not because of makeup or clothes, but because of what I knew now. I had always been enough, even when they ignored me, even when I got kicked out, even when Amanda was celebrated while I was background noise. It had never been about volume. It had always been about vision. And now that I was finally seeing myself clearly, I wasn't going back. I didn't want revenge anymore. I didn't even want recognition. I wanted impact. I wanted to help other girls like Meth, quiet ones, the thoughtful ones, the ones constantly told to wait their turn. I grabbed my notebook and scribbled something in the back corner. Be the voice you never heard when you needed it most. That would be my mission, my legacy. Not a viral post, not a clickbait comeback, but a steady climb, the kind that made the ground shake without ever needing to stomp. That weekend, I hosted a small dinner in my apartment. Just Grandma, Aunt Carol, and 2 coworkers who'd become fast friends. No decorations, no curated menu, just good food, honest laughs, and people who didn't ask me to shrink. Grandma sat in my favorite chair and looked around with that proud little sparkle in her eyes. You built this, she said quietly. All by yourself? I nodded, finally accepting it. Yeah, I did. Carol clinked her glass against mine. To the girl they overlooked until she walked into the room they couldn't ignore. We all laughed, and I felt something in my chest unstick. For years, I had waited for someone to pull me into the light, but now I knew I was the light. And from here on out, anyone who wanted to dim it would have to find another target. Because this space, this seat at the table, it wasn't given, it was earned. And I had no intention of giving it up, not for Amanda, not for anyone. It was just after 10 a.m. on a Tuesday when I got the email from Jada. Need to see you for 10 minutes. Something exciting. I grabbed my notepad and walked to her office, heart thumping. We're launching a cross-department strategy group, she said as I stepped in. A small team focused on improving communication between analytics, marketing, and leadership. And I want you to co-lead it with Marcus from Data Ops. I blinked. Me? Lead? She smiled. Not lead co, lead. With autonomy, voice, and decision-making power. I stood there stunned. I hadn't even finished my second month, and already they were handing me an opportunity I'd spent years begging for in my own house. I nodded slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. I'd be honored. She handed me a folder. Prep starts next week. Bring your ideas. I walked out with the folder pressed to my chest. This wasn't a token gesture. This was trust, real trust. I felt the shift happening inside me, like someone had taken the weight off my shoulders and replaced it with wings. I didn't need to tell anyone at home. I didn't need to text Amanda. This moment was mine. Finally. And I was going to protect it at all costs. I spent the rest of the afternoon mapping out ideas, internal newsletters, cross-team analytics dashboards, monthly feedback sessions. The kind of systems I used to quietly build for my family, except no one ever asked back then. No one noticed. Now, they were asking, listening, letting me lead. I was finishing my third concept note when the receptionist pinged my desk. Hey, Lucy, someone named Amanda is here asking for you. She says she's your sister? My stomach dropped. What is she doing here? I stepped into the hallway, and there she Wasame oversized sunglasses, fresh blowout, tight smile. Hey, she said like we were meeting for brunch, not like she was crashing my workplace. I was in the area and thought I'd stop by. Can we talk? I glanced back at my desk, then at her. About what? She dropped her voice. Just A quick favor. 5 minutes. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I nodded and led her to the small bench outside the building. She sat like she owned it. So, I'm applying for this media internship downtown. Big agency. But they said they're looking for candidates with real strategy insight. I figured since you're doing all this, maybe you could write me a referral. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Not a harsh laugh, just stunned. Amanda, you got fired after 1 day. Then you spent 2 months going viral for it. And now you want me to vouch for your strategy skills? She blinked, caught off guard. I just thought, we're sisters. And now that you're finally doing well, maybe you could reach back and pull me up too. My chest tightened. I remembered all the nights I stayed up helping her with her presentations, only for her to take credit and then joke that, you're better in the background anyway. I remembered being kicked out of my room, being ignored at my own family dinner. And now, here she was, asking for a shortcut through a door I built with my bare hands. I looked her straight in the eye and said, you want strategy experience? Start by building something of your own, the way I did. She shifted uncomfortably. So, that's a no? I stood up. That's a boundary. She didn't follow me. She didn't text later. And honestly, I didn't expect her to. Because Amanda was still chasing spotlight, but I wasn't chasing anything anymore. I was the destination now. That night, I went home and opened the fridge to pour a glass of wine. I sat on the couch with my laptop and reread the fellowship welcome packet. Every line felt like a reward I had never been offered growing up. But instead of gloating, I felt grounded, calm. I didn't want to show them anymore. I didn't need to win to get revenge. I had already won, quietly, slowly, honestly. And as I scrolled through emails, I saw another one pop in subject line. We'd like to feature you. It was from the company's internal newsletter. They wanted to spotlight my transition from freelancer to strategic co-lead. I closed my eyes for a second. The girl who got kicked out, overlooked, underestimated she was about to be seen across the entire company. But more than that, she finally saw herself. I opened a fresh document and typed the first line of my profile submission. Sometimes the best things happen after the worst door gets slammed in your face. And this time, I wasn't knocking. I was building my own house with walls made of boundaries, windows wide open to growth, and a front door I decided who walked through. It was a Thursday morning when I stood at the front of the conference room. Lights dimmed, slides cued, heartbeat steady. Jada nodded from the back row. Whenever you're ready, Lucy. I took a breath, clicked the remote, and stepped into my moment. This was at my first official strategy presentation as co-lead, not just a pitch, a blueprint, a vision. I walked the team through my ideas like I had done it 100 times before. Clear timelines, problem-solving models, real examples from my own work. And the room? Silent, but not the kind of silence I knew from my childhood dinner table. This was attention. Focus, respect. By the time I reached the last slide, hands were already raised. Not with critiques but excitement, ideas, praise. I'd led the room not by demanding it, not by performing, but by earning it. When it was over, people clapped, and this time, I didn't shrink. I smiled, thanked them, and returned to my seat head high, heart full. I hadn't just survived, I had stepped up, and I finally knew this was never about being accepted. It was about realizing I didn't need permission to succeed. I just needed the space. And now, I had made it for myself. That evening, I walked home beneath a sky, streaked with soft gold and deep lavender. The air was cool, the streets buzzing with life, but I felt still, settled. I passed a little bookstore near my apartment and stopped to browse. On impulse, I bought a blank journal and wrote one sentence inside the cover. You weren't kicked out, you were moved forward. That was it. That was the truth I hadn't seen in the beginning. Back when Amanda got her job and my parents handed her my room, I thought I was being punished. But what if that push was exactly what I needed? Because had I stayed, I would have kept playing the same small role, quiet, helpful, invisible. I wouldn't have applied for the job. I wouldn't have found the courage to speak. I wouldn't have had to look in the mirror and ask myself who I wanted to be when no one else was watching. Getting kicked out felt like rejection. But in reality, It was a redirection. And now, I wasn't just in a better place, I was in the right one. I didn't just reclaim my life, I redesigned it, brick by brick, without applause, without shortcuts, with purpose. Amanda texted that weekend, just one line. I think I get it now. No request, no selfie, no half apology wrapped in a favor, just a quiet acknowledgement. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to hold space for her journey anymore. Mine was enough to carry. I spent the afternoon finalizing a blog post for the company newsletter me feature story about the power of being underestimated. I wrote about resilience, about showing up for yourself when no one else will, about boundaries that protect, not punish. I ended it with, I used to think success meant getting back into the room that pushed me out. Now I know better. Sometimes, the best move is to build your own room and make sure the door only opens for people who've earned it. When I hit publish, I didn't think about how my parents would feel. I didn't wonder if Amanda would read it. I thought about girls like me, the ones doing all the right things, waiting to be chosen, handed an ounce of recognition. I wanted them to know you don't have to be invited to matter. You just have to believe you're already enough. And then, act like it. My apartment was quiet that night. No voices arguing in the next room. No one knocking on the door, asking for help but never offering any in return. Just me. My work, my choices, my freedom. I stood by the window and watched the city lights pulse and fade. Somewhere out there, Amanda was probably brainstorming another reinvention. My parents were likely still wondering when I'd come home, but I wasn't going back. Because I hadn't been lost. I'd been misplaced. And the moment I stopped waiting to be rescued was the moment everything changed. They kicked me out after my sister found a job. But then she lost hers and I found myself. That was the real story. That was the real win. I didn't need the room they took from me. I had built a life bigger than any of them ever imagined. And this time, no one could kick me out. I was home, in every sense of the word. And finally, I was free. So guys, they kicked her out to make space for someone else's dream. But when that dream crumbled, she had already built her own. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about realizing you don't need a seat at their table when you can build one with your own name on it. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or kicked out of the room, remember that door closing might just be the start of your story. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever been pushed aside, only to rise even stronger? Hit that subscribe button and don't miss our next story. Because here at Home of Revenge Stories, we don't just survive the betrayal. We win in silence and we rise in power.